each job, each whatever you achieve in each job is like a brick, and then another layer, and then another layer, and then suddenly you've built your house. You know what I mean? And I think that's, you gain something from each brick. Each brick is edifying to you, and that doesn't go away. And I think that's what then continues to build you as you go, because God willing, you love what you do. Hopefully you're good at it. And so you should do well.
You gotta pick yourself up, go backwards, and slam yourself at the wall like 500 more times until the wall crumbles.
25% of middle school girls already believe they'll never achieve their dream career.
Hi, I'm Kara Goldin, founder and CEO of Hint. And you're listening to Unstoppable, a podcast spotlighting the journeys of inspiring entrepreneurs. I believe that at its core, leadership is about constantly learning from the people around you, and I'm so inspired by the conversations we're having in our upcoming episodes and can't wait to share them with you. This season, some of my guests include Rebecca Minkoff, fashion designer and founder of the Female Founder Collective, Diana Kaff, author of Girls Who Run the World, Andrew Dudham, founder of Hims, and Eugene Rem, co-founder of Rumble Fitness, and much, much more. Plus, we ask the $1 million question, what does it really take to be unstoppable? Let's find out. Hi, everybody. It's Kara Goldin from Unstoppable, and I'm so excited to have our next guest here, Laura Brown. Hi, Laura. How are you?
Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Laura is the editor-in-chief of InStyle. I mean, who doesn't know InStyle? It's just the most amazing, beautiful, beautiful book out there, and is one of the world's most successful fashion media brands. Laura is leading a brand that reaches over 30 million women. Wild.
Hi, everybody.
Yes.
Hi, all 30 million of you.
Yes. So awesome. Laura oversees the core magazine, digital across all the platforms, and 13 international editions as well. InStyle has really seen unprecedented growth across digital with record-breaking unique visitors to InStyle. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but over 10 million? I mean, that's...
Yeah. I will say one thing just quick, that I'm more of a dotted line, as they call it, corporately to digital. It's we overlap, and they'll defer to me in some places, but I don't run the day-to-day because there's just no way. It's 50 stories a day. so
that's fair.
Yeah. But I have my involvements, which I will happily share.
I love it. So in addition, she leads the development of the InStyle Badass Women, which, by the way, I am honored to say I was a part of
Yes, you were.
last year.
Mm-hmm.
And that is when I'm out speaking and they say that I was a badass woman. That is the one that I always get a great cheer in the audience saying, yeah, she's a badass.
No lady dislikes being called a badass. That's why this whole thing started. It's like, no one goes, oh, if I say, oh, you're a badass, and they go, ew, everyone loves it. It is the greatest compliment.
I love it. It's one of my best ones. And so
good.
Laura spent 11 years at Harper's Bazaar, another book that is just incredible, and rising to the role of executive editor, and has done amazing stuff with some other great books. I mean, what haven't you done here? Details, W. I mean,
Details,
it's just...
W. Oh, I was at Talk magazine for 6 weeks, right after September 11th when I moved to New York. So I worked for Tina Brown and Harvey.
Oh my God!
I was there for not in any proximity to Harvey, thankfully. I was there 6 weeks, and then that closed down. So I've packed a lot of different titles, and that's not even in Australia. You know what I mean? So but now I was going to say, into my short time in magazines. I've been in magazines 27 years. Is that right? Yeah, 27 years. I started when I was 19.
I love it. This is a podcast, obviously, but Laura clearly looks like she's about 25. So I can't believe that you are, yes.
46.
Yes. Wow.
Just when did I check? What month is it?
I know. August is this week, which is just frightening.
Ladies, what is time, man? Time is no longer counts. Yes, I've been 46 for a couple of months. So
I love it.
Just sit yourself in front of a window, girls. Sit yourself in front of a window. And
you're so funny. Funny. So anyway, well, welcome.
Thank you.
So you mentioned Australia. So is that where you grew up?
Yes, I'm a proud Aussie farmer's daughter from a town called Camden, which is outside of Sydney in Australia. And my I was born there, and my parents got divorced when I was 5. So Mum and I moved to the quote unquote big smoke, Sydney. And yeah, I was brought up there. I have my dad remarried, and I have a half sister and a stepsister on the other side. But I was essentially an only child as I grew up, and I was just me and my mom, and I was just sort of hungry to be part of things all the time. I started waitressing when I was like 14. I started working and I started having my own money, and I loved fashion and everything else. So I was very independent, for better or for worse, very thirsty to just be part of the number one, the world, because we were so physically far away from it in Australia, and we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have Twitter or any of that stuff. So I was thirsty for that, but I was also just thirsty to be out there and meet people and be with the grown-ups. So I think that sort of propelled me in tons of ways, at the very least being to get on the odd plane.
So you're in Sydney, and how did you make that transition into writing? Like, what was it
I wanted to be a journalist. I loved magazines. I just was really so enamored by them. And again, due to the distance, that we were away. I mean, one, there's a mythology to fashion and fashion magazines anyway. I mean, but there was, especially then, I'm talking like I'm coming up in high school. I graduated college in 94. So it was the mythology of the glamour and the creativity and the immediacy of it, but also the mythology because I wasn't near it. I wasn't near it at all. And to me, it was like totally pun intended. It was like Oz. It was like, look at this world. And I feel like that I wanted to experience things and to be able to record them myself and put them into the world myself. So I guess that's where the writing thing came from, or at the very least the journalism thing. You know what I mean? The wanting to experience people and things. It wasn't necessarily like I must write. I am a writer. Wasn't that, but it was like I was so hungry for everybody's experience. I wanted to meet everyone, and that's what journalism does. It gives you, I always say sometimes it's the most powerful profession in the world because you have so much influence, but also the most pathetic because you're always talking about what everyone else is doing. And so you get to be exposed to just the gamut of people and things, and there's no other job where you can do that. And so I detected that pretty early in Australia, and then I just kept projecting myself into these bigger situations where I could meet more people and see more things.
So I was a journalism major as well, and as you and I were talking right before we started this, that I wanted to get a job at Time. I wanted to work at Fortune magazine, and they wouldn't hire me because I didn't have any experience. I was trying to get my first job. But what was your first role then in journalism?
My first role, because I've actually finished, because in Australia our arts degrees are 3 years as opposed to 4. So I did journalism and communications. I graduated, I finished early because I took a job. It was called Australian Family magazine. And Australian Family, I worked at for not very long because that closed down. I had a really kind of great record a while of like working for things that closed down. But I worked at Australian Family just for a few months. But then I had done an internship previously at a magazine called Mode, which sort of fancied itself as like a 90s W, like in like a kind of like social glamorous.
I remember Mode
kind of way, yeah. Aussie Mode, yeah. And so I'd interned there, but then I got a job doing like production, like literally like shipping the magazine and chasing people for their deadlines. And this was back in the day when you would like hand write out the grid yourself. Like this is like crazy stuff. And I didn't love that job very much because it wasn't very creative, but it got me in the door. And then I would, write at night and say, no, I can write that section. I can write this. I can write that. So I did my, and then they ended up segging into more of a, an editor role. But my first real job was not necessarily a creative one. It just kind of, they knew I could do that, but I was getting the magazine into the printer.
I love hearing the story though, because every great, disruptor, entrepreneur in almost every industry that I talk to, they really, whether they recognize it or not. And what I just heard out of you, that you were, throwing up your hand and say, put me in, right? Like you were like, I want to do this. And
so needy,
wait,
so needy.
Right? You didn't wait. You were just, and you weren't like totally confident that you could probably do it either, right?
Yeah, but it's just like, yeah, but it wasn't like, I'm conscious of saying it wasn't like it was a plan. It wasn't anything. For me, I feel like I just lurch around with enthusiasm. Like it was more my enthusiasm and excitement about what I was doing that would lead me to go, I can do it. It wasn't like, oh, I'll show them, or this is my plan. It was like, oh, I'll do that. And I feel like that, I think sometimes when we're trying to chart a course or get into a certain industry, sometimes if you can remember those sort of childlike things of something, just something that you really love. If you really love it, you're going to gravitate to it and you're going to put your hand up. So I felt like more of like I surfed my way into it rather than sort of really contriving. You know, that would be far too sophisticated for me.
But I think that's really interesting. And I have a book coming out in October, and sort of the theme is a lot of that, where, you know,
Right.
if you didn't know the word failure, what would you do? And I so often talk to people about this journey that they've been on, and how so often they were raising their hands with enthusiasm. You know, they didn't necessarily want to do that role forever, but they were like, oh, I'll do it. You know, it'll be fun.
And there's a guilelessness to it that I think is really important too. It's not about like, I didn't know intrinsically what I wanted. Of course, I knew that in my core, but there's this sort of go with this sort of the joy and naivety and enthusiasm, and hopefully you have some sort of aptitude, you know, for the business that you're in or want to be in. I hope that comes with that you know yourself well enough for that. But yeah, just that sort of like, oh yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I still
but so often I think people think, okay, she gets to the top of, you know, Harper's and then InStyle, but there were a lot of things along the way that you were, you know, there were steps along the way.
I mean, so many. That's the thing. There's been so many that I sort of forgot where I first worked, because it's been years and years and years in different countries and different machinations, and it does end up sort of an idea of it. I say like any career that is deemed successful or success is up to you, but is thing you achieve, each whatever you achieve in each job is like a brick, and then another layer, and then another layer, and then suddenly you've built your house. You know what I mean? And I think that's, you gain something from each brick. Each brick is edifying to you, and it doesn't go away. And I think that's what then continues to build you as you go, because God willing, you love what you do. Hopefully you're good at it. And so you should do well just by those two very, very simple factors if you're not forcing it, you know? And that's when you start, as you get older, you get to be a bit like, yeah, I can do that, because you have.
Yeah, no, I love this. Yeah. I also see this in women too. And you know, we'll probably go out on a limb and there'll be a few men that hate me for saying this, but I feel like there's so often is this step that, not always, but I see men taking where they went from here to there, and, you know, and they, I don't know, they got lucky or whatever. So often with women, they actually did exactly what you're talking about, where they built it, and you don't forget about those steps. And so you actually know how to do those. You probably still know how to put a brick in there, right?
And you're built. And I think that it doesn't matter whether that brick is, whether you built a company or whether you fed your family and they're healthy. It doesn't matter what that thing is. And that's why, honestly, I've been on this challenge that's been going around, the challenge accepted, you know, women supporting women thing. I've always had a bit of an issue with the word empowerment, because I feel like it sort of transmits the idea that we need it or we don't have it already.
I agree.
And so, because I feel like, to go back to the bricks, whatever her circumstance, and of course many women and you and I are in, you know, better circumstances than a whole lot, but there everybody has those bricks, and I feel like sometimes women forget that. And it's okay. I know it's not so easy, but when I hear the word empowerment, I'm always like, I feel like it's a little patronizing.
Yeah.
I'm like, we all have those damn bricks.
No, definitely. No, but I love it. Yeah. I love knowing that you remember those days. And so
yes, God.
So how did you get to the US then?
I got to the US on a one-way ticket. Oh my God. What did I do? Because I moved to London for a couple of years, and then I went back to Australia, worked for Harper's Bazaar, but I just had my heart set on this. I just remember when I worked for Harper's Bazaar, we used to get this bag of magazines. It was called the Air Bag, It's very creative in Australia. It's a bag from the plane, so it's called the airbag. And we would get all these magazines, and I was hungry. I mean, like the new Vogue would come, the new Harper's Bazaar, the new Details, the new W, the new New York Magazine. I remember one day I had a roommate, and we actually had a really great apartment overlooked the harbor. It was really lovely. And but I was reading New York Magazine, and I was reading Intelligencer, and this was year 2000, I guess, early 2001. And I'm reading something about like Moomba, the club, or something like it's such a time capsule. But I was so entranced by this Intelligencer section that I looked up, and I remember that I'd forgotten where I was. Like I forgot. I looked up and I was like, oh, I'm in Sydney. Like I'd just gone mentally to New York City. It was a very physical feeling. It was really strange. And so I was like, all right. I mean, that wasn't the then and there, but it was just, I just had to come here because I think it's very much, again, part of the journalistic impulse where you want to be where things happen in the first instance. And again, we didn't have that at home. We didn't have all the access we have now. So it was kind of second, you know what I mean? I would write a review of a fashion show from the internet, and I wanted to see a fashion show with my own eyes, you know what I mean? Or an art exhibition, or see a movie when it came out and not 3 months later. Or so it was just, it was the idea of just like wanting to see it. And New York was whatever the center of all of that, especially for magazines and fashion. So there wasn't really a choice. I had to come. I think most journalists, whether they've stayed in Australia or not, have gotten on a plane and gone somewhere because it's just very much part of the instinct. But then you add to that sort of Aussie silly hustle. I'll go, you know what I mean? Because you haven't been and seen the rest of the world when you grow up. That's why I did it. So yeah, I turned up September the 4th, 2001.
Great time, right?
Yeah, really. Yeah. I mean, look, thankfully I didn't, I didn't have friends that, I barely had any friends by then because I'd been there a week. What a time to get here. So I feel like it did, if nothing else, as horrendous as it was, really distilled very quickly whether you were going to stay or whether you were going to go. And I think a lot of Aussies left, and more power to them. They'd been here and they were like, see you later. I was, again, sort of guileless, I guess. And I was like, well, I'm here. My mom is like, your bags are still packed. You can come home. And I was like, oh, I'm down, but I'm in Gristedes buying my tuna. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't occur to me. It didn't occur to me to go. And I felt like when you're here in that time, you're in the fabric. That's it. It's your town. You know what I mean? And that's what it was. But my first year felt like a dream sequence. I don't really remember like where I got my social security number from, like just various establishing things. I don't really remember. I just was here.
Right. So I moved to New York in the early 90s, and I stayed with a friend of my sister's who was living in the East Village on St. Mark's between B and C, which was not a very...
No, wait. My first place was St. Mark's between first and second.
And I remember I grew up in Scottsdale, and landing there, I mean, outside of her, I knew nobody. Two things happened to me the first week, at which I should have left New York. Everybody said, I can't believe you're still there. My first day when I went to go work at Time Magazine, I walked outside the apartment, and there was a painting of somebody had just died. And so I asked the police officers, they were doing, the outline. And the outline. And I said, eyes wide open, girl from Arizona. I'm like, excuse me. What is that exactly? And they said, you should move along. Somebody has passed. Then I got on the subway. I'd only been on a subway once, and I get on the subway, and then not that night, but the next day, my scalp is itching, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then I looked down at my hair, and I see these bugs, and I got lice the first week. And so I remember this is my first job.
Like, start spreading the news.
So I said to my boss at Time, I came in and I said, I've been my hair all night. It's just awful. And I had never been through this, and I'm crying, and I'm 21 years old, and I'm like, how did
I wanna be a part of it.
Right. And I'm like, and so of course I call, my mom was calling me, and she said, so are you going to come home now? And I think I'm okay. Like I'm fine.
That's what I say when New York likes to give you the finger. And, but it just goes, it gives you the finger, and then it's like, test you as it is right now again. But it goes like, gives you the finger, is like, you really want to live here? You want to live here? Do you? Do you? Do you? Do you? Do you? And you're like, I think so. And then suddenly it's almost 20 years later, but it will test you.
It will test you and make you more interesting and just add to your ability to live and handle and
up your masochism index.
Exactly. No, it's so funny. So talk to me about the everybody's in philosophy and how it's developed into the InStyle brand.
I don't sort of happen upon these sort of platforms or slogans from any sort of tested place, or you know what I mean? I feel like there's a lot of women's stuff where it's like, what's our women's platform? What's our da-da-da-da-da? For me, it's just come out of something out of my mouth. And I think the previous example to everybody's in was the badass thing, because I was reading about, this was 2.5 years ago now, when Trump had his first attempt, which has sadly come off, which was to ban trans people from the military. And I was so pissed off, as I think so many of us were. And I was like, I want to profile a trans woman. So we found this trans woman called Jennifer Peace, who served in like 3 wars, 3 kids, just amazing. Incredible. And I was reading about her and I was like, oh, what a badass. And I was like, oh. So that became an organic like page every issue of an online platform. Now an issue, now a whole thing. And same thing with Everybody's In, because I think I've always loved fashion magazines because I love fashion and I love that idea of it, but I don't like being condescended to. I don't like reading a magazine and feeling worse about myself, that I don't have the right husband, the right garden, the right body, the right whatever sanctioned level of achievement of the day. And I say that as an editor. I don't like it. I don't like that prescriptive nature of it. I think obviously it's improving. I don't like the idea that sometimes fashion has, that it likes to make you feel that without this, you're not enough. I think I was about the measure of this business quite early, and I love and adore fashion and I love and adore magazines, but it's not Mensa. And when you can sort of see inside and out of it, I want everybody to feel welcome. And I don't sit there and go, oh, our magazine's just for the, it's, I hate the word aspirational, or it's just for this readership. It's not. It's for everybody. And whether or not each reader likes or can afford or cares to buy a pair of Prada shoes, that's up to them. Or if they want to read about an immigration lawyer that just is like saving kids on the border, great. I can put all those things together, but I firmly believe, and I've become so much more stubborn about it, when you finish reading InStyle, you feel better, not worse. You don't feel like you don't have, or you aren't, or you're not worthy, or you need something. If you buy a lip gloss, super, you know what I mean? But you're not defined by that. So that's any equity I've earned in this business, I'm spending on that. I can produce a beautiful, gorgeous fashion picture that, Louis Vuitton likes, and that's fine. And I will do that. But I can also, these things are not separate. Each woman can appreciate a beautiful fashion image and also work and worry about how she's going to pay a bill, or how she looks, or if she wants to color her hair, or we have so many different gears. And I think that I'm just trying to, put them all in the blender every issue, basically. Yeah. So everybody's in.
You do a great job. I mean, I think what you're touching on too is just that any influencer, whether you're an actual, celebrity, or you're an editor, or a CEO, or whatever, there is a sense of responsibility that you have that.
Oh, especially now, my God. I mean, I was hired 3 months before Trump was elected. And so for me, not to try and be on the right side of history since all of this has happened, would be profoundly irresponsible. And for me, just to stick our head in the sand and be like, oh, here's a lady in a ball gown, in her garden. That's not where we're at. And I think that we have a platform of all these millions of ladies that you were talking about. And if I can, put some vitamins in the honey, I will certainly do it. And I think that's what I am most proud of, is we have been very much part of the conversation, for the last few years, and have been not just reflecting the culture. We've made news. We put Dr. Fauci on a cover 2 weeks ago. And that's my job.
Which was amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
I absolutely loved it. He looked like the CAA, executive.
I have something. This is literally, I have one trick. And when I put sunglasses on a senior citizen and I call it the Biden.
It was absolutely awesome. He actually was my father-in-law was at New York Hospital for years, and actually almost 50 years. And Fauci was actually his resident.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah. And so it's funny, a couple of years ago, he had actually told me about Fauci and how, he was probably, one of his like smartest and always asked like the best questions and hardest working. And then, he starts showing up on television and,
now
really
he's the man.
He's
and
the
now Trump's grumpy because Fauci's getting the attention.
Yeah.
Did you see Trump saying that the Yankees had asked him to pitch and they hadn't?
Oh,
yeah, it actually gave me a real kick yesterday in the Times. It talks about how Trump said that, and then he's a little incensed that Fauci's getting play, and then it mentions InStyle magazine, and I was like, yeah.
That is so awesome. I love it. Well, and I love that you're like smiling through this and having a good time with it too, because you can't take it so seriously that you get so.
Well, you can't shake your fist every day. No one can. No woman, man, or anyone else. It is not good for our health. It's just not. I think it's easier for us sometimes to come at all of these issues because we come at it through the particular woman who represents X, Y, or Z, rather than all day just throwing in on every hashtag and this and this and this and this and this. It is just futile, and also becomes, you keep yelling, no one's going to hear you. You know what I mean? Like, that is just endless. You just become noise. So you do have to choose your battles, and you have to edit. And I'm an editor. So I like to be like, oh, okay, like, for example, factors that I do, but here's Dr. Fauci, and here's what he represents during this COVID fight. A Badass Woman issue is out now August. A Badass 50, which you were on, this year is 50 healthcare workers, one from each state.
I love it.
Celebrating each woman, but also not just celebrating them covered in PPE, celebrating them as, hi, this is Jane. Jane likes winged eyeliner. Like, she's an actual person. You know what I mean? And so for, that's what I'm really keen to do. And so again, it's very clear by talking about these women, it is very much clearly implied that they shouldn't be have to do this because we should have handled this earlier, but by saying here's X, Y, and Z doing the job, I say that without just going, F Trump, he screwed up in Feb and March every second of the day, because it's defeating and tiring. And we look at everything else going on in this country. There's enough battles on enough fronts that I'd rather try and be a bit more personal about it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you guys you've done a great job on that. So obviously we're recording this during COVID, and I'd love to hear what you think. I mean, obviously producing a magazine, I think, working in any business, I think is super challenging during this time. Yep. As move
What forward. Do you mean, honey? It's a picnic. It's a picnic.
No, exactly. But well, two things. I mean, I think like the big thing that I'm most curious about is, obviously you've covered this for Bazaar, and, you cover this as like so many fashion. I mean, you cover lots of different brands, but as we start to look at events, right? And
what's an event?
And, like Fashion Week and some of these, what happens, right? I mean, how does this,
nothing,
how do you collect?
Here.
What is going to be happening for fall with like collections with
nothing in the States. I know that pretty much. And it's not, look, we have an InStyle Awards that we do normally every October, end of October. In LA, we're not going to be doing that. No, we can't do anything in the US, and that sucks, but it is what it is. In terms of Europe, they will be doing it in sort of different ways, but it does depend. We are not sure if, it's funny, I had a couple of brands saying, so you're planning on coming to shows? And I'm like, dudes, we're not allowed to get on a plane to Europe right now. Like, I mean, I have no control over whether or not I can go to Paris, or whether anybody in the American press can go anywhere. I don't know when I can go to Australia. So I don't know. I think there'll be European shows in Europe, and they've already done a couple. Etro and Dolce & Gabbana and Jacquemus did some shows a couple of weeks ago, sort of social distance mask, la 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 la. They'll certainly do that. Whether or not Americans or people living in the States can be part of it is to be seen. If I could safely go to Paris at the end of September, I would love to. I love it, of course, but could not answer anything. The way it's going in this country, I don't see that. I don't see us getting there. Yeah. But I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong.
And so do you think these things end up happening? I mean, just how sports are without an audience, and you do it by Zoom, or?
No, I think that, it's funny. because there was all this debate before all of this happening about who should show and who shouldn't. And there's designers that should show and those that just are better off if they do a presentation or they do direct to consumer or there's many different modes to be a successful designer. So I feel like a lot of people feel like the schedules and everything were already too padded by stuff and obligations that people didn't need to be doing. If it's the designer don't need to show because it costs them too much money, from the editor who can't get into the office all day because she's fulfilling all his obligations. So there was this necessary questioning of who should and shouldn't. But what I think as COVID has shown in a weird way, part of the charm of fashion is its old fashionedness in some ways when it's done well. Like I miss going to a show, and there is something about a digital fashion show. It just doesn't transmit. It just doesn't. There is something about the electricity in a room of a show. It's about your particular eye for a detail, whether you think a shoe looks cool or how you position it in your head or what that means to you or what it reminds you of personally as those young folks like walk past you. And I think that there's even sort of back to it's funny how it goes 6 circles around, but back to my earlier perspective of like wanting to see it with your own eyes. You want to see it in real life with your own eyes. So I don't miss going to a bunch of shows that don't mean anything. I miss going to shows that mean something. And I think that like a Valentino show, for example, but I do think that is the realization that the designers have had is that it does need to mean something now to be worthwhile. But a bunch of brands, I mean, obviously the really big ones like Chanel and stuff are like, yeah, no, we're showing it. It's a thing. That's what we have to do. So it was sort of cliche. It was the French people, of course, who came up first. No, we will always show. And, and that was that. I think a great fashion show is an amazing thing. I really do. But we'll just have to see when we can go. I mean, all the digital stuff that brands have been doing, I barely watched it. I know I should be, but I haven't been so drawn in. So
engaged.
Yeah, it says something.
I feel like there's a technology play, and I don't know what it is, but I feel like, we'll be sitting here in a couple of years from now saying, of course that happened, right?
Yeah,
like
I don't know. I mean, it's a sort of eternal question about how we do it, but there is just like a beautiful outfit that was designed with real joy and intent and walking past you. There is nothing like that,
Yeah.
So I don't think that will go away. I just think we've got to find our way in the middle a bit better than we are.
And maybe it, because in New York you can do 50 people at these. I mean, maybe there is a way.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
in New York, ain't no one doing anything soon. We're just excited to eat outside.
I know.
So maybe somebody can walk some models up and down Columbus Avenue when I'm having my Mexican takeout. That's all we got to look forward to right now. God bless.
I hear you. So you're in the city?
Yeah, I mean, sort of in and out. We will. Me and my fiance will kind of sit here for a few weeks and then go somewhere just to kind of charge ourselves up to come back again. We went to North Carolina for a couple of weeks. We've been out to the beach. Yeah, but it is a bit weird that we can't really. I was quite struck last week with the fact we can't really fly anywhere now. We can't go to the Bahamas. Just places that were sort of taken as a given that were 3 hours away from New York that maybe you could go to if you want to go on holiday. No one wants anybody from the States.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely terrible. What a bragging right to be international pariahs. So
yes.
No, I like my apartment. I live near the park. It is what it is. There's nothing you can do apart from be kind of sanguine about it and try and keep your spirits up. But I do think that's again where I'm lucky, because my team and I talk about this all the time, because we get to make a thing every day we can, or every month or somewhere in between, we can see the results of what we're doing. So we're not just floating in limbo all the time. You know what I mean? We can put a cover out and see that bounce around the culture and be rewarded by that. So we do have something to show for ourselves while we're at home. So we all count ourselves super lucky for that. Some professions, some people aren't even working. Number one, a whole lot of people aren't even working. Number two, there's people whose professions don't work like that. You know what I mean? And are just a bit sort of stuck. So, for that choice of the immediacy of telling a story, I'm super grateful that I do that right now, even though it's a bit tiring, but it's okay.
Well, I love how, the combination of fashion and really bringing in what you believe is important, Fauci on the cover, all of these things I really admire for how you've led.
Woo, wait for our September issue. September issue is really good. It comes out in 2 weeks. It looks like, I sort of said to my it looks like we didn't have any problems at all.
Yeah.
And we so did. We so did, but it looks great, and I think it's really reflective of what a team can do when they really, really try. So I'm proud of it.
I can't wait. So that's going to be really, really fun to see. So 2 last questions. I always ask.
Oh, yes.
What is your favorite hint flavor?
Hint flavor is lime. That's hard.
Which I mentioned to you is like on hiatus. And what did you say to me that it has to?
Bring back the lime. Bring back the lime.
I know.
The lime, at least so we can hang out with his good friend tequila.
But you also said you like the lemon. You like the lemon as well.
I like lemon. I like a light citrus. I've always been more of a light, like lemony lime citrus than an orange. But that's just me, guys. Just me.
You're so funny. That's awesome. And then final question: what makes you unstoppable?
Well, this question actually, I will be contrarian, because I actually think I am eminently stoppable. And I think that knowing when to stop and knowing what your limitations are really, really important. And as, a woman who's in a prominent business, or a lot of us, I think you need to know, and especially right now when it's very challenging out there for everybody, you need to know, you need to do the best you can, and you need to create what you can and do work you're proud of and be kind. But if you need to stop, or if you actually can't for a day or whatever, don't second guess yourself. Don't beat yourself up. If you need to go to bed, if you need to have a glass of wine, or you need just to lie there and stare at the wall, do it. I always think embracing your limitations is one of the greatest thing any woman who is successful or wants to be successful can do. So how to be unstoppable is to occasionally stop.
I love that. And really self-care.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds like, that's
basically it. That's basically it. But it's all right. It's okay to say sometimes I can't do that. Yeah. I don't have the ability, desire, whatever, juice, the charge in my human iPhone to do that. That's fine. It'll get done. Just look, getting through the days right now for so many people is an absolute hell zone. So don't beat yourself up on top of it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you don't write the great novel. I am certainly not.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Absolutely. So your Instagram's amazing. Is that the best place to follow you?
That's where I live, at Laura Brown 99. Yep, I live there.
I love it.
My little avatar. And and I'm there on Twitter, but people know where to find me. So, and I love it. Obviously everybody's in. I love to hear from people. I chat away with people on Instagram all the time. So, I am an only child. So be my friend.
I love it. Yeah. And I'm Kara Goldin on Instagram as well, with an I, Goldin with an I, but definitely
golden glory.
This has been really, really fun, Laura. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for taking the time, and enjoy the rest of the week. And thanks everybody for listening. If you are not yet a subscriber, definitely subscribe to Unstoppable and hear the rest of our great interviews that we're doing, and lots of learnings along the way. So,
and apologies for all my yapping, ladies. I'm sure you'll get your life back.
No. we love yapping, and it wasn't yapping that way. So appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much, Laura. I appreciate it.
I'll see you soon, doll.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Talk to you soon. If you like what you heard, please help spread the word and leave us a review. You can also follow along with me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Kara Goldin. Do you have a question for me or want to nominate an innovator to spotlight? Please talk to me at Kara Goldin on Twitter. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, be unstoppable.